Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Let me tell you something. Is Vergil Ortiz, is he putting duck sauce on the fried rice? Is he out here, man, having Jaron Ennis on a duck hunt? Quack, quack, quack. I think we got a gold mine, a conversation, man. Let's just understand this. There's a whole lot at stake for Jaron Ennis and Vergil Ortiz. And people need to be reminded of that. You have two elite American fighters. You have two promotional machines. Neither one of these promotional machines want their fighters to lose. And you got a payday that could reshape both men's trajectories. Now, Jaron Ennis, he is a polished, versatile boxer puncher who's officially moved up to 154 and just made a statement in his debut where he damn near killed Lima. The kind of opening that forces matchmaking conversations. Now, the matchmaking conversations have been going on for quite some time about him and Vergil Ortiz. Now, Vergil Ortiz, hard punching, Texas knockout artist, big name, and big draw regionally. The fight everyone keeps talking about, Ennis versus Ortiz, the black man versus the Mexican. The kind of rivalry that gets the juices flowing, especially here in North America. This fight has the heat of a potential blockbuster, but the actual negotiations have been messy. Promoters, purse demands, public sparring between camps, and accusations of ducking thrown around on social media and in the press. I don't know what's going on, but someone's putting duck sauce on the fried rice, and I think it may be Vergil Ortiz. The facts. Look, promoters and outlets confirm this, all right? The facts show terms have been discussed and certain public claims, like a $10 million demand, have circulated and been denied/accepted, rebutted at different times, which is why this negotiation shit turned into a soap opera, in my opinion. Now, Jaron Ennis, Vergil Ortiz. Does each guy deserve $10 million? Maybe so. But it sounds like that's not what was agreed to initially when everything was ironed out and they reached terms. Now it seems that yesterday's price isn't today's price for someone in particular. And we're going to talk about that. Now, what each guy brings. But Jaron Ennis, people say that he's today's Roy Jones Jr. Say he's athletic, he's unorthodox, he has skill, he's got power, he's got the mentality. He has everything you need to make a fighter unpredictable and very dominant and who's just going to find a way to win. Now, in addition to all of that, Jaron Ennis, technically elite, excellent ring IQ, switch hit feel at times, good defensive footwork, power that travels up in weight. Now, for anyone thinking Jaron Ennis can't hit, forget what he did to Lima. Go off what everybody says who sparred that man and been in the camp with him. They said that is a monster. And I tend to believe there's some truth about that. You don't just get out there and destroy people the way Jaron has without having some kind of power. Now, he's been marketed as a complete fighter rather than just a puncher. And when you've watched all of his fights, you can just go back to Roman Villa and kind of fast forward from there. You can see, that he has something special about him. He boxes well. He can pick his spots. And, if he decides to, especially if you let him, he is going to knock you out. That's why some consider him the A side. Stylistically, you got to understand, Jaron Ennis poses more of a tactical nightmare for Ortiz than just a mirror image challenge. It's more than just two great fighters. Nah. Stylistically, Jaron Ennis is a nightmare. We all know what Ortiz, southpaw-ish, pressure. Let me tell you something. This is the thing. Ortiz, he's coming forward orthodox. I don't think I've ever seen him go southpaw-ish, man. I don't think so. Yeah, that Jaron is the one who switched it, but Ortiz, nah, he doesn't. Maybe if he gets you on the ropes, and he just may temporarily have his feet positioned from a southpaw stance just to, get an angle and work the right hand in the form of a hook or something. But Ortiz, I don't think I've ever seen Ortiz really go southpaw. But what I will tell you with Ortiz, he brings pressure. And that pressure he brings, if Ennis is fighting in a southpaw stance, Ortiz can bring southpaw pressure. Okay? Heavy hands, very heavy hands. Got murderous body and uppercut work. And Ortiz is a guy, no matter what you think, he has done nothing but made highlight reels, and he definitely can and has filled arenas in Texas. One thing about Ortiz, and this is why I think some people feel Ortiz will beat Jaron, is they just look at the excitement he brings. And they say he's simple. He's not looking to do anything more than what he needs to. He knows what works for him, and he's very effective. His game plan is always solid. And that's why he gets in there, applies pressure, mauls guys, and stops them. But when you think about those styles, you know, the tactical and unorthodox and athletic style of Jaron Ennis, and then just that pressure style of Vergil Ortiz, you know, when you think about that, it's really like a boxer puncher versus a pressure knockout artist. That shit is classic TV gold. That shit is classic TV gold, man. And it's what casual fans will sign up for. The diehard, we watching that, no doubt. But when you talk about the casuals, those are the guys who will sit there and watch this fight and become boxing fans. Now, all of that sounds good if they ever get in the ring, but there's some drama. There are some public negotiation dramas, and I don't know who to believe. I don't, to be honest with you. When I lay out the chronology, talk seeded months ago, man. It sounded like the deal was done. I don't understand why they just not coming out there and agreeing to the fight and got a date. I don't understand what there is. But there was a near setup for a date linked to Riyadh season cards and other high-profile events. Then things just slid and both sides started trading public lines. I knew it was going to be an issue when Oscar started talking this A-side crap. I said, Oscar's not going to make this Ennis-Ortiz fight right after Lubin. People were excited. They started two of them in the ring. I said, this shit ain't going to happen. Oscar doesn't want it to happen. I think Ortiz will fight anybody. But as a result, Ortiz is the fighter. His promoter doesn't want it. So, you know, Ortiz looks like, because he's the one talking about $10 million too. Maybe Oscar got in his head. But at the end of the day, sounds like Ortiz is putting duck sauce on the fried rice, man. Because when it comes to fast Eddie Hearn, look, I know Eddie Hearn will sit there and lie. Eddie Hearn had no problem lying to the public. But, you know, when he said publicly terms were agreed at one point, I believe that. And then for De La Hoya and Golden Boy to push back saying that they want favorable terms, that tells me that something changed. And Oscar pointed to the changing value of Ortiz, especially after big wins for Ortiz and the promotional calculus that comes with him. Now, listen, I'll say this. Erickson Lubin is a much bigger name than Wisma Lima. I gotta be real. I thought Lubin was going to be able to beat Ortiz with his reach, boxing IQ. But what Lubin showed me, right, is one of two things. One, he's too much wear and tear. Or two, he's still in his prime, still a great fighter, and Ortiz is just special. But the bottom line, some people are saying, all right, Lubin's name is a much bigger name than Wisma Lima. So as a result, as far as the public and the way they see it, and how Oscar sees it, Vergil Ortiz destroyed a top name, a big name in boxing, and Jaron Ennis destroyed a nobody. But that doesn't mean that the guy that Jaron Ennis destroyed, it doesn't mean that Vergil would have destroyed him too. But I understand what Oscar's doing. He recognizes that he has a moment here to really make more money and get more money for Golden Boy and for his fighter. So I understand that. I understand that. So when they start talking about the promotional calculus, I get it. But then you look at Ennis camp, they publicly suggested negotiation hiccups centered on weight, guarantees, and timing. I don't know what's true. On top of that, there are social media sound bites accusing one side or the other of putting duck sauce on the fried rice, which fuels the narrative even when the real problem is basic contract math. Now, I'm going to sit here and try to be fair. My understanding is when a fighter wants to fight, the fight happens. But I'm also going to say this. Oscar De La Hoya seems to be a person that is like, it's my way or the highway. He doesn't care what his fighter wants to do. He's going to do what's best for Golden Boy, not for his fighter. And that's why De La Hoya seemed to be out here talking about all this crap about yesterday's prices and today's price. Even Eddie Hearn said the terms were agreed, and De La Hoya came out with this stuff and the reports and demands of wanting about $10 million. That I think these fighters should get as much money as they possibly can, but $10 million seems like a lot to me. But hey, if he can get it, he should get it. So when you look at that, Jaron and his team have remained consistent. They don't want more money. They're not trying to come back and go back on what they agreed to in the contract. They just want to fight. Simple. But Ortiz's team is the ones over there seem to be squirming and coming up with different excuses and reasons for the fight to not be made. Because let's be real. $10 million, if Turki Al-Sheikh doesn't want to pay that, then that means Oscar De La Hoya and Vergil Ortiz are just going to go and do something else. So if you ask me, this is an effort for someone to put duck sauce on the fried rice. Now, this accusation of ducking, we need to try to unpack that. Ducking is an emotionally charged accusation, right? And it gets thrown around a lot in boxing. Matter of fact, there's these bozo YouTube channel out there who's stealing my shit. I'm the only one out here ever who's referred to these boxers as putting duck sauce on their fried rice. Nobody can come up with that. You know why? Because that's original. That's my sense of humor. I've been joking about shit like that. Even back in the day when I used to write rhymes. I was like, how does that shit go? Trying to think of how that rhyme went. But anyway, it was saying, talking about seeing a sexy girl and make my eyes start squinting. Me no Chinese, but the General Tso's chickens. You see what I'm saying? So I've been making them kind of jokes and punchlines about shit since I was in my 20s. But that's how that lyric went. And in that same song, it was the name of the song was called Champagne Campaign. It's funny. But I was like talking about being in the club, seeing a sexy girl on the floor, and how she was so sexy, she made my eyes start squinting. I said, me no Chinese, but the General Tso's chickens. Like General Tso's chicken food. And in that rhyme, in that song, I'm talking about putting duck sauce on fried rice. But anyway, that's a whole other story. It just pissed me off. But people can do what they want, right? That these idiots are using that shit and trying to create video titles talking about duck sauce. And I know they steal my shit because it came to my channel and took some other talking points. And people are like, hey, they're stealing your shit. I mean, word for word. Stuff that nobody else could come up with. I'm not saying this. It's just, that's my sense of fucking humor. But anyway, it doesn't matter, right? But when it comes to ducking, or like I say, putting duck sauce on the fried rice, it's an emotionally charged accusation used to shame negotiation delays into appearing cowardly. And it should be used, you know what I mean? If someone putting duck sauce on the fried rice, then, call it out. But I'll say this, the reality of high-level boxing is that money, timing, weight class, and career trajectories make fights complicated. And I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. Ortiz's team say he said yes and is ready. Others point to Ennis' past schedule or conditions as reasons fights didn't happen when first muted. So the bottom line is sometimes ducking is real. A fighter avoids a risky stylistic matchup, and sometimes it's a cover for real-world business decisions. You got purse splits, guarantees, pay-per-view math, and platform. Saudi, Texas, pay-per-view streaming. There's a lot of different things that come into play. From available public statements, both sides made claims. Ortiz insisted he said yes. Ennis and his team have navigated weight and timing issues. So branding it as I think a simple duck is reductionist. But in short, public bluster doesn't equal the full negotiation record. So I just wish the fly on the wall could talk so we know what's really going on. But some people are going to bring up, yo, Jaron Ennis, he wanted 2 tune-ups. He wanted 2 tune-ups at 154. So who's ducking who? Who's scared? Who wasn't prepared? Where's the fried rice? I'll tell you this. There have been reports and talks that Ennis might want 1 or 2 warm-ups at 154 before jumping into the Ortiz fight. Fighters do this to acclimate to a weight class, test power carry, and protect long-term value. Now, word on the street is Jaron didn't say this shit. But, I don't know. I do know Turkey Al-Sheikh wasn't trying to hear none of that. You know what I'm saying? Turkey Al-Sheikh, he wants you to come and wants you to be ready. He doesn't want nobody talking about they need tune-ups. Turkey Al-Sheikh don't have time for that bull crap. And if Ennis did ask for tune-ups, it's a perfectly rational, competitive move. He's preserving his brand and body. Now, do I agree with that? Hell no. You're supposed to be the special athlete. You're supposed to be an alien from another planet. Get your ass in there and scrap. Now, whether he asks publicly or privately is less important than the strategic logic. A fighter with Ennis stock may prefer to debut and then ramp to a mega fight rather than risk an immediate career-altering loss. Some people say this isn't ducking. It's risk management. That's another way of saying somebody putting duck sauce on the fried rice. Now, boxing history is full of examples where smart timing increased value rather than ruined it. Now, this fight with Wisma Lima, that when Jaron Ennis went in and damn near killed a man. Okay, Eddie Hearn, that's what you wanted. Give him the fight, dominate somebody, and make this big splash in the 154. Okay, we don't need another dominating performance where he's trying to make like what? The first cannonball didn't work. You go try that shit the second time, he made belly flop. So Eddie Hearn better be careful with this second tune-up. Because I think right now, I think the value of an Ortiz and Ennis fight has increased big time. But if Boots Ennis goes out here and really tries to take another tune-up fight, that's going to ruin it. If Ortiz swerves the Ennis fight, I think that's going to ruin it. But if they're still dominating, I guess it will increase the future value of the fight. But this $10 million being thrown around, and who's saying what? Listen, a $10 million guaranteed number has appeared in the coverage, sometimes attributed to Ennis camp, sometimes quoted by third parties, and sometimes dismissed as hyperbole. A lot of people saying Ortiz is the one and his team are the one that want the $10 million. I'll say this. I'm just listening to Brian Norman Sr. and others who scoffed at some versions of the numbers that were being thrown around by Ennis and Eddie Hearn and stuff behind the scenes. Outlets have reported both the figure and denials between what happened with Brian Norman Jr. and Ennis and Eddie Hearn, and how some people felt Brian Norman Sr. was being greedy. Some people felt like Eddie Hearn was being stingy. But what I'll say is this. The $10 million that Ortiz seems to be demanding for the fight, I have not heard anything about Jaron Ennis wanting $10 million. Now, maybe there's something floating out there. You know what I mean? I don't know that. But for Ortiz, for sure, I keep hearing that. But we know this. Ortiz is a big draw in Texas. He could pull a big gate. Pay-per-view interest regionally, maybe he can do pretty good pay-per-view wise. Now, Ennis brings respectability and crossover interest. But I still, don't know how either one of them are going to make $10 million without Turkey Al-Sheikh. I'm just being honest with you. But promoters and networks evaluate not just the fighter's marketability, but alternative options. If Ortiz can make huge money fighting other names or on different platforms, and Golden Boy controls some of that leverage, the asking price for a guaranteed purse rises. Oscar De La Hoya knows with Ortiz getting that win over Lubin, he could have Ortiz fight anybody there in Texas, and Oscar De La Hoya knows it's going to be a huge gate and they can make good money. Maybe not $10 million, but for little to no risk and make probably between $3 and $5 million, Oscar De La Hoya is cool with that. Diggable planets. Cool like that. I'm cool like that. That's exactly what's going on. But if they're going to go and fight Ennis, it's got to, in the risk that's there, they want to get paid. So the $10 million figure is plausible as a headline demand or starting point negotiations for Ennis and Ortiz, especially if Turki Al-Sheikh really feels like the fight is worth it. But again, it's not necessarily a final guaranteed purse signed to a contract. You know what I'm saying? It's just like a starting point. But who knows? Turki Al-Sheikh may come out here and shoot all that shit down and say, nope, neither one of you get $10 million. This is the most, forget negotiations. I give you $6 million, you $6 million. Let's make the fight. If not, move. I'll move on to somebody else. Turki Al-Sheikh doesn't have time to waste. He needs answers now. He needs them now. That's why you heard Terrence Crawford talk about being in that room negotiating with Turki Al-Sheikh's people. Was in there for hours. And Turki Al-Sheikh like, why didn't you just take the deal? And Crawford was like, nah. So Turki Al-Sheikh, once he gets you there and he's looking to make a deal, he's not looking to have you there and come back a week from now, two months from now. He's like, nah, I have you here. Let's figure it out. But you know, man, with Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya, everybody wants to talk about the fighters. The fighters are ducking. The fighters are afraid. The fighters putting duck sauce on the fried rice. You know, maybe we're just seeing theater between De La Hoya and Hearn. Maybe they really have agreed to a fight and agreed to a number. They're just playing everything up in the media. You know, promoters play poker publicly. You know what I'm saying? We could all be the fools out here getting caught up in the bullshit, and they sitting back talking on the phone. Hey, did you see that video this guy dropped? Hey, we're trending. It's buzzing. This is going to make more money than ever. They could be doing that. Eddie Hearn said terms were agreed. By him saying that, it is a nudge to push the ball forward and create pressure. Oscar De La Hoya saying yesterday's price isn't today's price is a counter nudge that signals leverage and valuation. At the end of the day, the public back and forth serves, two purposes. It tests the public appetite, and that can influence networks and pay-per-view interests. And it postures for better splits. It's not necessarily proof that one promoter is trying to duck. It's standard negotiation theater. We've seen it before. But there's a strategic twist. De La Hoya, who is Golden Boy, might rightfully see Ortiz as an asset that can be monetized locally, Texas stadiums, regional pay-per-view, or against other names. Spence, Fundora, giving them optionality. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, they are mentioning Spence's name because Spence's name grabs headlines. Earl Spence should not return to the ring. Ortiz and De La Hoya mentioning Spence is like Clarissa Shields mentioning Layla Ali. It grabs headlines. Fight will never happen, but it grabs headlines because there's a monetary goal here. They're trying to get that cha-ching ching, Wu-Tang cream. And if De La Hoya smells a better business move or wants to extract more money, he's going to squeeze. That's De La Hoya. He's going to squeeze. Hearn will respond by signaling Ennis' eagerness, which may or may not be the full story. So yes, there's theater, but also real leverage behind the lines. You know what I'm saying? So who wins? I don't know. It's a stylistic matchup. Everybody going to have an opinion. Technically, you got to give it to Ennis. Ennis the more adaptable boxer puncher. If he controls the range, times Ortiz using angles, he can negate Ortiz's straight line power. Ortiz, he can scrap. So let's act like we're not downplaying Ortiz. But Ortiz, however, he can end fights quickly if he lands flush and forces exchanges. If Jaron is in with his hands down playing around, he may get hit and caught with some shit. But key variables, Ennis' ability to manage distance and not get trapped on the ropes. Ortiz's ability to cut the ring and land heavy shots early. I do think conditioning and ring IQ was going to matter, and that would be the difference. Both fighters' camps will be game plan heavy. And when I sit back and take a read at this, stylistically, this is like a 50-50 in the public imagination, but realistically, it swings towards Jaron Ennis. If he executes boxing fundamentals and avoids reckless exchanges. And he engages. He got to pick and choose when to engage and got to be ready for Ortiz in the bull rush. Because if Ortiz lands early and early shots accumulate, it's an Ortiz fight. That's why both sides have reason to want the matchup. It's stylistically fireworks. Quite simple. And there are plausible paths to victory for both guys. So either guy can win the fight. I just think you got to look at Jaron Ennis. So what happens? Somebody got to win, somebody got to lose. There's got to be a gain, got to be a loss. I think in scenario A, the fight happens at agreed money. Both fighters get big paydays. The winner becomes unquestionably elite in the U.S. junior middleweight scene, and promoters validate the deal. Scenario B, super welterweight, middleweight. Yeah, they're 154. They're super welterweight. So yeah, one of them are going to become elite at super welterweight. And promoters are going to validate the deal. Then you got scenario B, Ortiz holds out, demands more, or an alternative opponent. Ortiz keeps market power but risks criticism and losing momentum. That's what he can't afford to do. It's like what Ennis lost when he decided to come to 154 and fight Wisma Lima. Now, Ennis may take another big fight, but loses the marquee matchup window unless he takes somebody who's considered a bigger threat than Ortiz and dominates. And then scenario C is just, Ennis delays, then he takes a tune-up, and then Ortiz fights others. But the bottom line is both can still build value, but the perfect moment to collide, I think is now. But I think it's going to pass. And then scenario D is probably the worst. Negotiations break down. Each pursues alternative mega fights. Ortiz, keeps trying to go for Spence, but he ain't going to get that fight. Or some other big name. The bottom line is they both still make money, but fans lose a dream matchup. Each scenario has business and legacy implications. Timing matters more than talent here, and that's the truth. And I just don't think they have that much time to sit here and keep playing around. So we got to sit back and wait and see what happens. Now, who can make the most money? If Ennis goes and fights somebody else, can he make more money doing that than Ortiz can make fighting somebody other than Ennis in his next fight? I'll say this. When it comes to Ortiz, has a legitimate big market regional pull in Texas. They will come out and support him, 100%. Hold on 1 second, all right? Hey, I'm making a video. Them kids up there playing, man. I got this new microphone. Hold on, let me see something. So I can mute the microphone. Yeah, they up there playing on the stairs. It doesn't matter, but they be running all around this house playing around and shit. But this is my thing. When it comes to Vergil Ortiz, can he make big money without Ennis? Yes. Ortiz has a legitimate big market out here in Texas, man. With the right opponent, he will sell big gates, pay-per-view, at least regional. He'll make some money. Promoters know this. De La Hoya knows this. That means Ortiz camp has the leverage to say, we can monetize without Ennis. We're not chasing him. We're going to keep making our money. And I just think that raises the price for Jaron Ennis. But that logic, it really only works if Ortiz stays active and keeps delivering big finishes, man. So he's got to keep delivering. Now, can he do that? I don't know. But I will say a loss or unremarkable opponent will undercut the leverage. So Golden Boy's argument that Ortiz can still cash in without Ennis is plausible, but it's not guaranteed. And I really think they should stop playing this stupid-ass game, because I think they keep playing around with Ortiz, man. Depending on who they put him in there with, Ortiz. I like Ortiz, I'm telling you. He'll mess around and lose, especially if they put him in there with another killer. So is De La Hoya ducking the Ennis fight, or is he playing chess? De La Hoya's comments about favorability and pricing read like a promoter protecting a key asset and putting duck sauce on the fried rice. And that can look like stalling the fans, But at the same time, to try to be fair from a business, when I look at it from a business point of view, I think it's leverage. If De La Hoya can get a higher purse or put Ortiz in a fight that guarantees a higher immediate return, some people say he should. And that may frustrate Ennis side and fans, but promoters' duty is to their fighters' earning power. So it's manipulation or negotiation dynamics, not necessarily putting duck sauce on the fried rice, but it is kind of putting duck sauce on the fried rice. If you get out the way, if someone throws something at you and what are you doing? You're ducking out the way, right? So the fight's coming at you and they get up underneath it, they just ducked it. So they put duck sauce on the fried rice. But at the same time, it is classic promoter preservation of value. And I understand that. All jokes aside, I do understand that. So probability estimate and final verdict. Here's a pragmatic take, okay? High chance, but not certainty. The fight happens within 12 to 18 months and both guys keep winning and avoid injuries. Promoters are motivated to make it because the matchup is premium TV. The sticking point is money and platform. Who gets home turf, pay-per-view versus the card, guaranteed versus the split. If Ortiz continues to win big and demands, let me tell you, the demand will increase, especially if he keeps fighting big names. Golden Boy and Oscar De La Hoya, Viva Mexico Camarones, is going to push for a larger guarantee or a Texas Golden Boy favorite platform. And who knows, he may get it. Now, if Ennis continues to look unbeatable at 154 and insist on his price, the negotiation will be hard, but not impossible. The bottom line is the fans. And for this fight, the fans are hungry. Fans want the fight. And that hunger translates to leverage. It's classic high-stakes boxing diplomacy. Lots of chest beating, but also serious business incentives to make it happen. Expect more public theater before a contract is signed because that's just the way Eddie Hearn and De La Hoya roll. But at the end of the day, I'm going to sit back and just watch for the next couple months. Let's see if they can make the fight. If we get official fight dates, confirmation from both camps, Ortiz's upcoming fight, the fight he just had with Lubin that made us feel like it was going to happen. But let's see if it does happen, because Ennis may go out here and still take another tune-up. But it sounds like the fight that he wants, his team wants, is the same thing we thought Ortiz and his team wants, is for Ortiz and Ennis to scrap. But this money shit is just creating more drama. But hey, they're using it to build content, right? Let's see what happens. I think it's going to just get more and more spicy. More theater. And when they start talking to business and throwing those big numbers around, for me, I try to make a realistic read on it. And I think they should make as much money as they can, but don't come out here and saying you want X amount, knowing you won't get X amount. And now the fans don't get what basically you guys were assuring us we were going to receive. Because all of a sudden you beat a guy with a big name who many said were washed up, and now you feel like, okay, I want more money now. Let's be realistic about things and make the fight happen. Because I'm tired of these guys not holding their horses and taking it to the stupid. But if you ask me, who wants to fight more than the other? I think Ennis wants it more than Ortiz and De La Hoya. As a result, Vergil Ortiz is putting duck sauce on the fried rice. Quack, quack. You hum in the breeze.